Sometimes we come out of an experience or we're in the middle of an experience where we feel like, we're coming out of a nightmare. We open our eyes and the whole world as we know it looks different. And, in those instances, sometimes our power and parts of our identity can be stripped away from us. And so now we're stuck in this wilderness where we must not only find our way out, but we must apply some survival skills to make it out alive and intact. So this kind of reminds me of some stories some experiences that I had in junior and senior high. Wasn't sure what I was going to share with you guys today. And to be honest, I didn't want to share these stories. I have never shared these stories outside of a very small group setting with close friends and loved ones, and maybe a therapist or two in the years past. But so I did mention this in another episode or two about having experiences from my younger years that really, challenged me to, set better boundaries and have better game plans and, have better survival skills. And so, you know, growing up, I was often the new kid at school all the way up until right before junior high. And then I had a small friend group and a couple of friends that I thought were really, really close friends. And, one day, toward the end of the school year, someone who I thought was my best friend just decided she didn't want to be friends with me anymore. So she just completely stopped talking to me when I got to school. No one at school would talk to me. To this day, I really don't know what she did or said to turn everybody against me. I don't know if it was more a matter of, early cancel culture, if my peers were smart enough to know, like, if she's going to do that to, me, then she can do that to any one of us. And so they were just like, we're good. We'll stay away. We'll do whatever. I'm not really sure, but it was heartbreaking to go through. I mean, just imagine showing up at school and, having a lot of friends, very close friends, and then, friends that you hung out with at football games or you played sports with or you were in the band with or you had classes with all day, and then no one's talking to you, or you're walking through the halls, people are tripping you, they're spitting on you, no one's talking to you in classes, no one will let you sit by them at lunch. I mean, it's every single place you go. And the interesting thing about that first time with this individual, she did it to me twice. So the interesting thing about the first time with this individual was it had happened right after our junior high had gotten together with the other junior high that were both planning on the next school year going up to the high school together. And so it was kind of like this mixer that they had for us. And during that dance, I met a couple people, exchanged phone numbers. This is back before cell phones and the internet. So you had to like dial people's phone number on your house phone, your landline, and you had to, go to people's houses, show up at their door if they didn't answer the phone or they didn't call you back and see if they wanted to come hang out. These were different times back then. And so I had these friends at the other school, and I even had, there was a guy who I was interested in, who one of the girlfriends that I had was like, he really likes you. And so I had already started hanging out with some of these other individuals. A couple of them actually already went to the high school. They were a year older. And thank God. Thank God that I didn't have, as the saying goes, all my eggs in one basket, because that would have been devastating. That would have been social suicide. And trust me, when I went to school and then I'd have to go and my mom wouldn't let me stay home and she really didn't understand the magnitude of what I was experiencing, I didn't want to live. So there were a lot of feelings and emotions of hopelessness and how can I go on? This might have only happened for a month or the last probably 5 or 6 weeks of the school year, but that feels like dog years to a teenager. I made it through. Thank God for the weekends. Thank God for after school, because I did have this other friend group, and then summer came and I hung out with all these friends and it was pretty amazing. I was pretty a wreck during those times. So that guy that I was dating was such a good, nice guy, and I screwed that up. What are you gonna do when you're a wreck? What are you gonna do? And you don't have all the survival skills in place. But some of the things that I learned in that earlier experience was I had advantages. We don't come to an experience with no knowledge or no prior experience and tricks and tips. And so the advantage that I had was I knew what it was like to be the new kid and to not know anybody. And so I was already, you know, going into that kind of mode. when this started happening. And so I can get into that quiet place where, oh my God, nobody likes me here, nobody knows me here. And then I have these other outlets and they were a great lifeline. And then, next thing you know, summer's there. Some of these friends had driver's license already. So it was like this new freedom opens up. We start the new school year. Eventually, this individual who wreaked all this havoc on me, apologizes. I befriend her into this friend group, and she starts, tightly weaving herself into this friend group. And then about a year and a half later is when the second round happens. And in this instance, we had um we had been again, we got really, really close. I thought, oh, we can be best friends again. I ended up getting a job at the mall and meeting my now husband. And so he was a little older than I was, but we all hung out together. The whole staff hung out together. We were a tight group. They kind of folded us into the group. And so there were a couple other individuals that I went to high school with who also worked at the store. And so I started becoming closer friends with them as well. So now, fast forward, I show up at school again, and now I have a whole bunch of people, friends, and even not even just acquaintances that will not talk to me. People are again spitting on me. Now they're writing in Sharpie awful messages on my locker. They are saying things to me in passing, saying things to me in class, and teachers aren't doing anything about it. I mean, it's just over and over and over. It's just the kind of stuff that's in nightmares. Those nightmares that you keep having that you're stuck in high school and all these horrible things are happening. It was really happening. And there was a part of me that just didn't want to keep going back, but I had a survival guide. So I learned from the previous experience. I had a survival guide and I had a wilderness wisdom that I was applying to this in real time. It wasn't my first experience and it wasn't my first experience with this individual. So I had a little bit of intel now to know how to navigate it better. I couldn't shut it down. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't reverse it. You can't do any of those things, but I had skills that I was implementing.